So what is the number one problem that this person has, that this individual has? Is it that they feel, unworthy? Is it that they feel powerless? Is it that they feel overwhelmed? What is that one underlining problem?
Well, the number one problem that they're dealing with internally, the way you just asked the question, is feeling unworthy or feeling worthless. So the other things that you mentioned, like feeling powerless, or feeling lonely or whatever, that stems from them feeling worthless.
Yeah,
Like, for example, if I feel like I'm worthless, then even if there was some power that I should have or I recognize is available to me, I'm not going to grab it
that's right.
because I've decided, sometimes even subconsciously, that I'm not even worthy of the power that I have.
Perfect. And they're also not getting what they need, correct?
Exactly. They're not getting what they need. When you feel worthless, and this is what a lot of people don't understand about just this idea of feeling worthless, is that you don't feel worthy of your own dreams. You don't feel
That's
worthy
right.
of your own desires. Like, I might want a hug, but I don't feel worthy of it, so I don't even
Yep.
ask for it. And so, yeah, there's, like, in their
So true.
relationships, there's a lack of intimacy, a lack of connection, and part of the reason for that is because the person feels like they're not worthy of having that level of intimacy.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. And I think they also aren't getting their love language fulfilled, right? They're not getting their expectations of what their love language is. That's not being met. So, what are the emotions and the thoughts that this individual seems to have or carry around?
Well, the primary emotion is loneliness. And and it ties back to worthlessness, because when I say loneliness, it's the idea that I don't deserve a connection, right? So they don't believe they deserve the intimacy that they want. And so their loneliness is more of a manifestation of their belief that they are unworthy, as opposed to how other people are actually treating them.
Right.
So
And
they
this is
can,
where they start to self sabotage the entire connection together, right? All together.
well, yeah, exactly right. And the thing about it is, a lot of the when you feel this way, when your underlying belief is that you are worthless, you're able to apply that concept to every area of your life.
Right.
Oh, you want to take me out to this nice dinner? Let me just order pizza, right? And so then what happens is, I want this intimacy, I want this connection, right? You want this intimacy, this connection on all levels, right? Mental,
Right.
physical, spiritual, sexual. You want it on all levels with your spouse. Your spouse wants the same thing. But because you feel so worthless, you don't even recognize that your spouse wants the same thing.
Right.
So
Yeah,
then
that makes
you
perfect sense.
Yeah, so then you respond, I'll just order a pizza. And so then you order the pizza, you have your couple slices on the sofa by yourself, complaining about your loneliness.
Well,
And
they have this thought that's ruminating in their head that they're not good enough, right? And so they're not really showing up as their best and highest self. They're not 100% committed to not only self but to their relationship. So that makes perfect sense. So the problem is that they're not getting what they need, and their thoughts are really just, it comes down to loneliness and the feeling of, being unworthy. And then from there, what do their relationships look like?
well, their relationships are kind of, when we talk about how they look, right? Almost in a metaphorical sense, they look muddy, they look blurry. Because I'm looking at, so this person will be looking at all of their relationships through a blurred lens. So they don't even see what's really there. They don't see the desire of the other person wanting to connect with them.
Yeah.
What they see is, I'm unworthy of the connection. And so you know that. So then when that person wants to be intimate in any kind of way, you're thinking it's a pity party.
Right.
You're
Right.
thinking, oh, oh, this person is acting like they want to have sex with me, but in actuality, they feel sorry for me.
Right.
And so any behavior by that person, because they may feel lonely as well. So any attempt by them to try to connect with you, you find a way to turn it into a confirmation of your worthlessness. You
Oh, so good.
Yeah, so see, the reason that she keeps asking me if I want to go out to dinner at this nice restaurant is because, she knows I'm so pathetic or I'm a loser or whatever. And I really appreciate her being nice to me, but I know she'd rather not be married to me. And so when you have those thoughts to yourself, guess what? There's nobody there with a counter argument.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how we wire our belief system. And that's what
Yes.
we believe to be true. So let me dive a little bit deeper in terms of not just our relationship with our spouse. What about the person who has this problem? How does that affect their relationship, say, in the workplace or with their friends or even other family members?
It shows up in all places. And I actually worked with a client on this one time, and I had to really get her to dive deep. So we were working together because of, uh, from her perspective, the failing relationship between her and her daughter. So she
Right.
didn't even recognize that it was manifesting in her workplace. There
Right.
was this project, it was this technology innovation project or whatever within her unit. She was in the military. And so they had to come up with some technological solution, high end something or whatever, right? Now it was like over my head. I'm not that technology science guy, but she explained it. I'm like, wow, that sounds amazing. And then she won her team. She led the team, but her team won like first place. So they got funding,
Amazing.
like the Department of the Air Force is like, we're going to look at your project and see how we can incorporate that into what we do as a force.
Wow.
And I asked her, I said, well, how do you feel about that? Well, I mean, my team this and my team that, blah, blah, blah. And I asked her, I said, so do you deserve any credit? And that was a hard question for her to answer.
Yeah,
Her ideas, her work ethic, she led the team, but it was hard for her to give herself credit.
that's right.
And so, does she deserve the award? And so, and then that goes back to her marriage. Her husband was like, you're beautiful. I love you. You're amazing, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, I don't know why he says those things.
Really.
And then
That's sad.
and then that went back down to her relationship with her daughter.
Yeah.
She wanted to get closer to her daughter, but she kept half-assing it because she felt like she was a bad mother.
Right. Yeah, it manifests into every
Right.
relationship that you have around you. That's why I wanted to ask you that
Yeah.
question. So, in terms of this person who has this problem that we said is not what they need, what does that look like when it comes to their health?
Well, we have to keep in mind that a couple of things, right? The body mind connection is a real thing, and emotions are physiological.
Yeah.
So there are people who eat healthy and work out, and they have these perfect bodies. If they're depressed, it's going to manifest itself in your physical health,
Absolutely.
and
100%.
and you're not going to push up and sit up that away.
Yeah.
And so what happens when it comes to your physical health is, from a physiological standpoint, you are in a kind of a low grade stress response
Yep.
all the time. So the cortisol is pumping. You're kind of in survival mode, kind of not. So regardless of your exercise routine and how you eat and all that stuff, you're going to find yourself low on the positive hormones and neurochemicals. And so eventually, if you stay in that state of worthlessness and depression, it will manifest itself in your sleeping patterns, your eating
Absolutely.
patterns. It's going to sleep at night with your stress response turned on.
Yep.
And you don't need you don't need continual low doses of adrenaline while you're sleeping.
Yep.
And for a lot of people, this manifests itself in accidents and injuries.
Yep.
Over 80% of workplace accidents are due to stress.
Yep.
And I get that data from the World Health Organization. So your physical health, regardless of what you look like in the mirror, when you feel like this, your physical health is declining.
Absolutely. 100%. Been there, done that. I have all the postcards. I understand this one very, very well. And a lot of people that you and I work with, when we look at them sitting across from us, they appear to be okay. And I think that's what, another huge issue is that we look at people and we think they're okay. And some of these people are great actors and actresses, right? I'm fine. I'm fine. And and we believe them, but inside we don't see what's going on. And that is chaos inside. And that is where there's like, you're obviously in really low vibrations, you're really like vibrating super, super low. It's the negative self-talk, it's the self-sabotaging, and literally your system is almost in fight or flight all the time. And you'll sit there, and I notice a lot of them, they'll be fine 1 minute and then they have a complete panic attack out of nowhere, or an anxiety attack out of nowhere. And that should be a huge clue and indication that something is off. And so this one is really, really important. So the next one actually I want to go to is finances and money matters. So someone who has this problem of not feeling that they are getting what they need, they feel very unworthy, they're lonely. How does this impact their finances?
Well, it negatively impacts your finances. And again, I want to put this out there for people to understand. There are people who will hear that and say, well, I have money, I'm good. And if you say that, if you were to tell me that loneliness and worthlessness don't impact finances because you're rich, my response to you is, well, why do you feel unworthy? Because I'm not
Yeah.
going to argue with you about your money.
Yeah.
And again, it manifests itself in certain ways. For example, I just need to work out more to feel better. So I'm going to spend more money on these raggedy supplements. These supplements, let me tell you, like what creatine and protein don't do. They do not turn off your adrenaline. They do not turn off your cortisol. They don't turn off your stress response.
No.
And so you can take all the supplements and you can have this great body, but you're going to spend more money on things to make you feel better emotionally.
Yeah.
And then even when it comes to cooking, where that one week comes around, that one Sunday rolls around, and you're just like, I just don't feel like meal prepping.
Yeah.
And this is for the healthy people. If you're like me, you don't meal prep anyway. So there's not even a conversation. You just hope something is randomly defrosted somewhere. But so it's going to manifest itself in your finances because you're going to do things to feel better, whether it's buying more things to give you caffeine, more alcohol to numb the pain, more over the counter stuff to make you feel to help you sleep better. And then it manifests itself even in your relationships, or going back to intimacy. Well, I don't perform like I used to. Why don't I perform like I used to? And you don't realize it's your emotions. Well, let me buy this, let me buy that. Let me go to marriage counseling. So it's going to show up because none of those things are free. So if you are lonely and feeling worthless, I'm not saying that you're going to declare bankruptcy or become homeless. But what I am saying is that negative energy is going to show up in your finances, just like every other aspect of your life.
Yeah, there's a reason why I asked you that, because I find a lot of people who have these issues of feeling unworthy it's like the depressive shopper, right? It's that instant gratification, that dopamine, right? We get it like instantaneous, and it becomes very, very addicting. And it's kind of like it's a mechanism at that moment to solve the pain of what we feel. But it's just a band-aid. It's not getting to the root of the issue. And I know a lot of people who have relationships where they don't feel seen and valued and heard, and they're looking for that. And then, in reflection, you go back 60, 90 days into their bank account, they are spending an atrocious amount of money looking for that happy pill or that thing that's just going to make them feel better or give them 10 minutes of that dopamine hit. And it does impact relationships significantly, especially if the two partners are on totally different pages and one is actually being a little bit secretive of it because there's guilt that is,
Yes.
associated with that, right? So, a fantastic answer. I knew you were going to answer like that, but it's really, really important for our viewers and listeners to hear that, because that actually will drive a relationship even further apart, because now there's anger, now there's distrust, there's a whole facet of things that kind of get unboxed or excavated for that. So the next one and the last one I want to talk about is the spirituality component to this. This one is kind of super important to me. It's not really even, it could be looked at as religious. It depends on the person viewing it. But the person who feels lonely or the person who feels really unworthy, what does that look like in terms of spirituality? Because for me and the people that I've worked with, it comes across as, I am being punished. God doesn't love me. He's abandoned me. That's what it shows up for me. What does it show up for you?
Well, I think it's one thing to say God has abandoned me. It's another thing to say I deserve to be abandoned.
That's right. 100%.
And so when people feel that way, and the spiritual level is deeper than just, I thought I sucked at this.
Yeah.
When when it's on that spiritual, that deeper level, everything that I said before about how something negatively manifests in your life, it's worse than that. It's to the point where getting to the point where you can't even fathom having a connection.
Yeah.
It's one thing to feel like you're unworthy. It's another thing where you can't even fathom being worthy.
Yeah. 100%.
And so in that case, sadly, the question then becomes, why even live?
Yeah.
And
That's the
so
saddest part.
and I want to go back to what you said, what you were saying earlier about the guilt and the secrecy when it comes to money, right? Because I
Yes.
keep taking this back to the worthlessness. And so what happens is this is just kind of a scenario. Imagine that you just want the dopamine hit. How do I get it? Well, maybe your spouse, significant other, they're not around, and you order pizza, get you a couple beers, a pay-per-view movie, like something on Amazon Prime. So you spend $22, and you know that your spouse doesn't care about those $22. They don't care. Like, oh, I spent $22. Well, I have a lot of money. It's not a big deal.
Right.
But what happens, there's so many other things tied to it. Because what might happen is you're afraid that your spouse might ask, I thought you were going to do this. Why did you order pizza? And you're
Right.
afraid that you're going to have to admit how you feel.
Right.
And so that's why you keep it a secret. And that's that guilt.
Yeah.
But why do you feel that way? And then you objectively look at your life. Oh, nice car, nice house, healthy kids, good looking wife who takes care of me, or good looking husband, blah, blah, blah. So then you're ashamed of feeling depressed.
Yeah.
And so you're in this vicious cycle by yourself.
Yep.
And then there's this expectation, there's a spiritual expectation where at some point in time, they're just going to notice. Not if you continue to get better at hiding.
Yeah. And they usually do, right?
Yes.
It comes with a lot of shame and it comes with a lot of guilt. And those are two emotions that are really, really heavy, and they're very hard to work through and they're very hard to let go.
Exactly. And so when you lack that intimacy in your relationship, you're afraid to ask for help getting over the guilt and the shame. You're afraid to ask for help letting go of something.
Yeah, 100%. You got it.
Yeah.
Well, this is a great conversation. I think it's a very needed conversation. And I know that there are a lot of messages on LinkedIn. People are having a hard time and struggling with certain things like this. And these are the ideal people. When you look at it and you kind of break it down, these are the biggest struggles. And so I think, thank you for your time and all of your beautiful expertise. I always love getting on camera with you. And I really hope that someone can come across this video and this message. And if they're having a really hard time, they reach out to you. Because I think, sometimes when we just lean into betting on ourselves and removing the expectation, but really just loving ourselves enough to, just kind of expand our comfort zone and reach out to someone like you, literally you can change your entire life. And that's what it is for me. So I hope this message comes across very well to our listeners. And I just want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yes.